follow on from yesterday's Torchwwd reading, and is going to. I'm told that apparently there are certain things he's not allowed to talk about.
I'll explain.
But you won't talk about those when you come to
Tell us exactly what you've got left.
Anti-Lane.
For anyone who wasn't around last night, the reason I'm sitting up here is that I got a phone call 9 months ago I got a phone call about 9 months ago asking me if I wanted to do a novel based on a TV series, which they wouldn't tell me what it was. So after a couple of weeks of very strange conversations, they admitted that it was Torchwwd BBC. So I delivered the book 3 weeks ago, 90,000 word Torchwwd novel, one of 3 that come out in January. But as part of that, I've read about 6 scripts of the series, and I've been on the set and wandered around Cardiff. Tragically, I've also signed a non-declaration agreement, so I can't. There are certain things that I know about it that I can't talk about. But if you've got any questions about Torchwwd, or if we just want to have a discussion about the series and where it's going, what it is, feel free.
I think they should give Captain Jack a bigger gun. That won't be or is. Yeah, give us number 6.
Hang on a minute. You're talking about Captain Jack.
Oh no, I keep forgetting his name, so I don't watch it that much.
Actually,
When I was Captain Jack or something.
When I was writing the book, I wanted it to be heavy handgun, a kind of really modern one. And I was told, no, it's got to be a weapon.
Oh yeah,
So they
absolutely.
really want to push forward the 1940s references to Jack.
Yeah, but he uses a 38 Mark IV. You're going to give a 455 Mark 6. It's a big hand cannon.
Let's take a quick. Let's take a vote to start. Hands up who thinks that Torchwwd is an adult series. Hands up who thinks it's a kids series. Hands up who thinks it's an adolescent series. Point for discussion. It's not a real adult series. It's what kids think is adult. Come on, there must be something somebody wants to know about.
When you visited the set, what did you think of the hub?
It's a really impressive set. It's surprisingly small. It's about the size of this room, but it goes up probably another few feet. It's actually built on about 3 levels. There's a lowest level right in the middle, which is filled with water to depth of about 3 or 4 inches. So it really smells now. The water's kind of gone rancid. And then there's like a circular area around the outside, the office areas. And then above that, there's the conference room area, which looks down onto everyone. And they've got that big water sculpture up the middle. But actually, it's surprisingly small and very open.
Did you spot the little bits and pieces that are supposed to be around, that come from the Doctor Who, like the hand?
Yeah, it's very obvious they've got the glass box there with the Doctor's hand floating. It's actually larger than a normal hand. We have got big hands, it's bigger than my hand. But I guess that's just all screening, it kind of stands out. I didn't spend a lot of time looking at the details. We were on the set for about a quarter of an hour, and it's in a big hangar area. The set's on one side. On the other side, as people who were here last night, there's a kind of huge great white igloo with bits of wood sticking out of it. I didn't know what it was. But about a quarter of an hour into our tour around the set, suddenly this light started flashing and people started saying, quiet, building in progress. And it was very dark. We couldn't actually see that, feel our way very carefully out of the set. But from the direction of that large white igloo, I heard David Tennant's voice saying, outside those doors is a brand new world. Well, okay, that's the inside of the TARDIS over there. So that they kind of alternate on filming the two of them. Anything else? It depends what you think it should be. I mean, it's never going to be Doctor Who with lots of aliens running around. It's more of a psychological series. It's very much about the effect of what they're doing on them as people. So there's much more emphasis on them basically going mad and having strange relationships and just completely botching stuff up, because what they're doing affects them. And in that Daleks and Cybermen shooting each other on the streets of London, because that's not what kind of series it is. I've got this feeling actually that the Cyberwoman episode was completely misplaced in where it was put, because they'd only just established Iato as a character, and suddenly they undercut it. It would be better around 5 episodes on, I think. And from a dramatic point of view, that probably would have been better as well. I have this strange feeling they want to drag that episode forward because of some of the reviews that were going on the programme. They wanted something really big.
I also think they want to get Iato a bit more involved, because the whole thing's used in the background for the first 3 episodes. He's caring for his sign of wood, and now he's got a chance to get out there.
Yeah, I'm not sure he ever does though, that's one of the problems. He's never a part of the team like Gwen and the rest are. He drives them around in that big SUV, which has had the Range Rover logo taken off because Range Rover didn't approve of what was done to it.
They don't get anything free for publicity.
The Echo episode centred on him. Are they planning to do an episode for each of the major characters?
It looks that way, yeah. I think Gwen and Jack run all the way through the series, so that they are the 2 main characters, and they'll always be in the episodes. There's certainly a couple of big Owen episodes coming up. So kind of going to his background. I think he's one of the underdeveloped characters in the first 3 episodes. He's a bit of an idiot. Everyone seems to hate him. But actually, as you go on, you find out more about why he's become like that. Guy played Mick in Doctor Who was written an episode later on in the series, and it's a stunningly good episode. And Owen gets a really big moment in it. Toshiko is the one that doesn't really get very much to do. She does get at least one episode where she's central stage, but even so, there's not very much there to get hold of.
Doesn't she have where she has his pen?
That's right. Unfortunately, it's one of the scripts that I got sent. There's a alien pendant that allows the wearer to detect the thoughts of people who are walking past. So it gives you an artificial telepathy. What happens, of course, is you start realising how much people really feel about you, rather than what they say they feel about you, which completely undermines Toshiko's opinion of herself.
I think you said earlier you asked the question, it's an adult considering that it was moved at ours, this is like adult Doctor Who without the Doctor. Do you think they've gone far enough, or do you think that's going to develop as the series goes along?
I think they've always had a massive problem with Torchwwd. If you call it Torchwwd and you're Captain Jack, it's linked to what's effectively a kid series. So if they wanted to do a proper adult series, they wouldn't have spawned it off of Doctor Who, because I've got a 6.5-year-old son, he sees them mention the word Torchwwd, and God, he wants to see the show, we can't let him. So yeah, they're basing it on a series which has to be done for kids. But also, that's the audience, they've got a kind of built-in audience, they can't start from scratch. They want to know that at least the adults of Doctor Who will transfer over and watch Torchwwd, so they've got to make those connections. They've got to have a Cyberwoman episode, so people want to do the crossover. The trouble is they're also advertising it at 7 o'clock before Robin Hood starts.
Yeah.
And they're advertising, I think they're advertising on CD being on stage. They don't seem to know what they've got. On the one hand, they want to talk out as being dark and adult and nasty. On the other hand, they want people who watch Doctor Who to watch it. So just one of the things I've got in my room, I should have brought it down, is the initial publicity plan as to how they were going to sell the series. One of their ideas was to get a group of journalists in Cardiff on under false pretenses, let them wander around Cardiff Millennium Square, and then have an actor in a weevil costume emerge from a manhole cover and start attacking them. Which is why we pay marketing companies so many hundreds of thousands.
Saying that there's a lot of swearing and a lot of adult content to Torchwwd, but one thing that his character will not do is swear because of going back to Doctor Who. Now, is that, do you think, limiting Jack's character? The fact that he's not going to be swearing, he's not be doing anything really naughty because of going back to Doctor Who?
I think it's actually quite interesting what they've done with works pretty well that he doesn't swear and he doesn't seduce the members of staff that are hunting him. He lets them get on with it, but he's got this perspective from thousands of years into the future, and he can just stand above it all. So it's a different Jack.
They sort of put those bits of character into Owen, really, haven't they? Sort of
Yeah.
frivolous.
Yes. And I think as the season goes on, there's going to be more and more conflict between Owen and Jack, because they've got radically different ideas about how they should be pushing forward the mission of Torchwwd, whatever that mission is. Again, it's one of the things we were discussing last night, the irritation of Jack always saying, the 21st century is the time it's going to happen, we've got to be ready, it's coming. And I just love it. If we have 3 seasons of him saying that, and at the beginning of the 4th season he said, well, thank God that's all over there.
The other thing that worries me about the sort of whole, the actual, what is the mission statement of the Torchwwd organisation? Because on the one hand, they mostly seem to be filing things. It's mostly, put that down, you don't know what it does. We don't either, but we're going to put it in a box.
Yeah. You can't help feeling that Russell T Davies has actually seen Raiders of the Lost Ark one too many times.
Yeah.
Last scene where they're taking the box deep into the archives and hiding it. So it's exactly the same.
It does mean you can understand why in the Doctor Who Christmas episode it took so long between Get Hold of Torchwwd and Zap, because the answer, it might even have been the answer because we've now ascertained it was in London.
Yes.
Trying to find something in the 59th row back of the 37th warehouse.
Or Torchwwd London were probably out at a restaurant in Covent Garden somewhere, eating and drinking when the call came through from the Prime Minister. It's actually one of the bizarre things when you're writing a book compared to writing a script. In a script, you can just kind of keep on moving, and as long as it's fast enough, people don't notice the holes in the plot. When you're writing a book, things occur to you like, who pays their wages? Who do they work for? And I kept on asking these stupid questions to the production team. I kept on getting off the back like, we don't know, and it doesn't matter. Well, it matters to me, because I've got to write those people. I wanted to know which of them could drive cars and which ones couldn't. Because I wanted to see where Gwen has to drive from her flat to wherever they discover the body of the Weevil in my book. And it took 2 weeks to get an answer from the production team as to whether Gwen could drive or not.
And then they think about the road to.
Yeah. I did ask the question about who pays their wages, and the answer came back, well, we think Toshiko might use her computer skills to just skim money off people's banks. But they appear to have no remit for what they're doing. It's been set up hundreds of years ago by Queen Victoria, and they just keep on going, and they're not reporting to anybody. I did actually propose a plot for, it was going to be a subplot in the book that I eventually ended up doing, but it got taken out, where this group of men in suits turn up and claim to be the Torchwwd management, and they just take over the hub, and of course Captain Jack knows they're not, but he can't prove it. But in the end they decided that was just getting too close to this question of what's their reason for doing what they do.
Where they're going, we just bugger off, and someone says, yes, let's see your authority then.
Yes.
But how does everyone know about them to say, oh yes, they can come through?
Again, it's one of those unanswered questions that in a real police experience, if somebody drove up in a pent-up Range Rover, would you actually let them through the tunnel? So people must know all about it.
In real life it does work, but the more authority you actually play, the less likely it is that authority will be questioned. If you turn up appropriately dressed with a clipboard or funny looking equipment, chances are people will let you through. But what I'd like to know is how they're covering up what this is, the numbers of mysterious deaths and disappearances of Cardiff.
It's a bit like Inspector Morse, isn't it? Where half of Oxford seems to have been decimated by serial killers over the past 20 years.
Would you live in
We did actually try an experiment. Having seen the set in the morning, we then went to Cardiff city centre in the afternoon. We did the Doctor Who exhibition, which was nice because we got in for free because we were with the BBC. I was up for that. We did try an experiment. We stood at the Millennium, the fountain, the big metal fountain, and then walked to little shop front is, which is it's actually up towards the bay, just round to the right. It's actually a real shop front, which I don't know whether they bought it or just leased it off the council or what.
I think it gets discussed afterwards, but it's not finished.
Right. But it's a real set, which an external which they can film on. But it's actually about a quarter of a mile or so from the tower. But if you watch the pizza delivery people coming in, or in fact Gwen when she first arrived, it's like in the auto shop, along a corridor, down a lift, and then she's in the hub. It actually makes no sense in terms of geography. And I'm still trying to work out how they get the cars. Do they have, is there a car park nearby with a secret Thunderbirds type entrance? Down a big ramp, but into the underground. We just don't know those questions. When I was writing the book, we didn't even know Reese's last name, Gwen's boyfriend. Because he's actually quite a central character in my book. It's all about the relationship between them. It's my middle-age crisis book. It's about a bloke who thinks he's getting fat, his girlfriend doesn't love him anymore. So I've got Reese as a pretty central character. And I realised I didn't know his last name. So I sent an email to the production team and said, what's Reese's last name? And they said, oh. Good question. So I emailed back and said, I'm going to call him Reese Williams just for the hell of it. Because then 2 weeks later I got another email saying, decided to call him Reese Williams. We factor in the email said, Russell T Davies has decided he's Fairway Williams. I'm sure it was a complete coincidence. No, they haven't. That's right, take a photograph of it. Justin Richards, who's been editing and running the Doctor Who Live for a number of years now, we're old mates, we were at university together. So a couple of years, about a year and a half back, I just emailed him and said, any chance you want to ask me to do a Doctor Who book? And he emailed back saying, well, you've only got to ask. But then other things happened and I got around to it. I'm not sure whether I want to write a Doctor Who book again now, because there are too many people doing it. They've moved the aim of the whole line down several years. So the Torchwwd books now are what we were kind of doing with the Virgin books back 10, 12 years ago. I think I'd only do Doctor Who if I wanted the money, but the Torchwwd book I really enjoyed doing. So again, for those of you that weren't here last night, 3 Torchwwd books coming out January the 12th, I think it is. One by me, one by Peter Angelides, and one by Dan Abbott, who's a comics writer currently Warhammer 4,000 books for the Games Workshop. We set up a little secret website for ourselves where we could swap drafts of our books and exchange details about characters who we've created who might turn up in other people's books. So I've got a policeman colleague of Gwen's who she goes back to for advice. And I think Peter's picked him up as using him in his book. We've also invented a drastically horrible Torchwwd mission that went badly wrong some time ago called Operation Goldenrod, which we all refer to in hushed tones and nobody wants to talk about it. And it'll probably never be explained, but it gives it a kind of little bit of continuing history of the books.
When will you find out who wants to do it?
It depends on how well the series goes. If the series gets commissioned for a second and third season. But I think there are plans to do 3 books every 6 to 9 months or so. It might be too quick for me to do another one this time around, but I'd hope to do one after that. I believe they also do audio books of the Torchwwd books as well. They've got Captain Jack and Gwen to read the audio books. But given that my book is 90,000 words and they're cutting it down to 30,000 words for the audio book version, it's going to be quite a lot missing.
You mentioned if Torchwwd gets picked up for a second season, how's it looking like at the moment?
I honestly haven't got a clue. I'm not that close to the production team, so I don't know. I don't know what the viewing figures are like. I believe they were pretty healthy for the first 2 episodes, but I don't know how they're holding up.
It's averaging something like 1.5 million on BBC 3 and 2 million on BBC 2.
Is that good?
That is good for BBC 3 and also for BBC 2.
Okay, so it's looking pretty positive. And frankly, would you want to piss off Russell T Davies at the moment?
The first episode was BBC 3's best ratings ever or something like that, or second best ratings ever. So it launched with it.
Yeah. I guess at least part of that will be seeing how the DVD box set sells when that comes out.
I don't know what's on there.
It's all secret, obviously.
It's very secret. It's on Amazon, you can pre-order it already.
was on the Tesco.net website. But they'd not used the blurb from the back of the book, they used the plot description that I'd written for BBC Books. So it actually gave away all the stuff that was in the book and the ending. No, don't do that, take it off. I don't know if I mentioned, but the book's coming out as hardbacks. They're going to be like the Doctor Who books, but larger, normal hardback size.
In the books or version of the series, do we ever find out how they help Jack or that?
Not in Torchwwd, as far as I know. I mean, certainly in the books we can't explore any of that. In fact, there was a big debate as to whether we could even use Jack as a viewpoint character. As you no doubt know, if you're writing a book, if you've got a scene in a book, you tend to follow one character through that scene to get access to what they're thinking, but not what anybody else is thinking. You can skip around different characters, but you don't do it within a scene, you do it between chapters. And a couple of us had started writing Captain Jack as a viewpoint character. We were told, oh, no, you can't do that. Captain Jack, he's got secrets, he's almost an alien, we can't have access to his thoughts. So we had to argue that one back and forth, because we didn't see how you could write a book where Jack was the main character and not have access to his thoughts. So we've got it through on a kind of provisional basis. We're not allowed to go into his backstory or any of the stuff he really thinks, but we can have a kind of superficial narrative of what he's thinking. But I think a couple of us have slid through references to stuff that's happened to him, thousands of years in the future on other planets. We'll just try and get that through.
I find it quite interesting listening to you talking about you writing the books as opposed to the script writers. Now, is it normal that they wouldn't have done things like persona sheets and backgrounds and all of that kind of thing before they started doing the scripts?
This is just me talking, I don't know this for sure, but I think they got Torchwwd off the ground in such a hurry. And they were aiming for a particular launch date. And a lot of it is in Russell T Davies's mind. But I don't think they actually sorted out any of those character details. And they were certainly changing stuff right up till the last minute. Ianto was originally Idris in the scripts that I had. And they changed his name very shortly before they started filming. And there are details that I was told which are now not true about relationships between the characters. It's all shifting back and forth. Partly in reaction to what they're seeing in terms of the public reaction. And partly because of internal meetings within the BBC. But I've got a feeling it's all tied up with this thing, but they don't quite know what they had. They never quite knew whether it was an adult series or a kid series or where it was going to be shown.
But these days, you asked about who the programme was aimed at. I don't think you can, with something like the science fiction genre, you can't really aim at a market because there's so many of us are huge Doctor Who fans. It doesn't bother us that there's not bad language or anything. We just love the series. We love the programme. So, kind of like the whole idea of targeting it at, particular groups kind of seems a bit, I don't. It's fine, isn't it?
Yeah, it goes back to this thing. They actually employed a marketing company to determine the marketing strategy for how they would release the details to the public.
Yeah.
Why?
Widen it. Sort of say, we want universal appeal, and we can't, vary it to that degree. I mean, let's face it. Much as we would like to think our children don't see anything because they don't watch television after the 9 o'clock routine. I mean, if you've ever watched children's programmes these days, it's terrific. I mean, I haven't watched children's programmes for years. My kids are well grown up, but blimey, I looked at one the other day and I thought, I can't believe they're showing this. So it's kind of, the whole thing's changed now, hasn't it? So I think rather than, I suppose it's just common. I just find it interesting that they want to market it at a particular group rather than sort of say, well, let's encompass all of them.
Again, I mean, Doctor Who is not just another children's series.
No, it's not.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, well, remember originally Doctor Who was never a children's series.
It was originally.
Started by BBC drama, not the children's series.
Yeah, but it was aimed at children. It was aimed at children. At least we saw the original episode. But I mean, it's always been a crossover. I mean, it's always been not just children's series.
I'd say it's a family thing.
It can
deal with adults. I mean, adult stuff isn't just bonking and swearing and violence. That is not adult stuff. That is... That's right.
Which I think comes back to
and
the
I don't
divide
think it's right to, Torchwwd should just be swearing and bonking and, you know, whatever. It should deal with deeper, darker, like you said, that horror stuff, more psychological.
But I think the thing that Torchwwd hasn't got, which more adult series have, is the kind of moral ambiguity and the uncertainty of the characters' motives. And how they might be doing the wrong thing for the right reasons or the right thing for the wrong reasons. A lot of that is simplified in Torchwwd, which is a bit of a shame. It's interesting parallel with the Robin Hood series. The guy who commissioned me to do the Torchwwd book, BBC Books, I phoned him up and said, are you thinking of doing any Robin Hood books? Because I'd be interested. And he said, oh no, I'm taking a look at that and we decided it's a kids series. What do you do? I'd argue that in some ways Robin Hood is more adult than Torchwwd in terms of the way it approaches the motivations of the characters. Certainly the sheriff from Nottingham going around cutting out people's tongues.
It never fails to amaze me actually how, I think an actor made a comment on this a few years ago in Canada, talking about adult specifications, how we can be grossly offended by a nipple, but nobody bats an eyelid at somebody's head being blown off or being assimilated or being cyborged, or it kind of made me think about why is it because the sexual side is too personal or what, you know? We're letting our kids see. I'm not making a commentary or a judgment. I mean, I like blood and guts as much as the next person. But you're saying about you're not letting your son watch Torchwwd properly because some of the themes are too mature perhaps for him to grasp.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're happy to let them see a programme where the Cybermen come and suck your brains out. That's pretty horrific to watch too. That was just a comment I was going to make. What do you think about that?
I was interested by the Alien movies.
Yeah.
You know, the first couple of Alien movies were X-rated.
Definitely horror.
I think in America R-rating. Because horrible things happen to people, there's a lot of tension and people being chased and walked down. And then you look at Alien versus Predator, which in some ways is the nastiest of all the movies in terms of what happens. It's all CGI creatures killing CGI creatures and CGI blood everywhere, so it's okay if you've got a 12 or something.
Yeah.
And there's a double standard going on there somewhere. I'm not sure I understand it.
And much of that was due to the societal change. There were about 20 odd years between the two, the first Alien movie and the Alien vs Predator. A lot's changed in that time.
Yeah.
There's the suspense, I think. The suspension, because to me a horror movie is not just about the consequence, but it's the events leading up to that consequence, the suspension. You know, some of the scariest movies I've seen have to do with ghosts or something like that, where you don't actually see you know, you don't actually see the monster, or you have the events leading up to it. Alright, it's slightly overcooked in Blair Witch, but that was one of the nice things about Doctor Who as a child. Now, you know about the Daleks. Okay, but it built on your youthful imagination if you were going to watch it as a child and as an adult as well, because you had a deeper understanding of the themes about death and fact and all that rest, so it affects you at different levels. But I haven't seen a lot of Torchwwd, I must admit. But the first thing I did see of it was a Japanese gentleman fondling a pair of side boobies, and then he got fried for it, rightly or wrongly. And it made me wonder, the person who's been made into a cyberwoman, how would she fit it as a Cyberman? Because they wouldn't be able to fit her in because she's too lumpy. They wouldn't be able to hydrogenise her because just what happens. This sort of like Xenia on acid brow. You know, and I kept thinking, which way are we heading here? You know.
I was used to worry about the Batman movies. It's going to sound like a strange tangent, but
yeah.
Who makes Batman's costume? It's probably Alfred, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the four, you know, Tim Burton starting Batman movies. When Batgirl arrived, imagine Alfred lovingly cast fiberglass breastplate, modelling the nipples with his ancient fingers. No. It doesn't bear thinking about.
Especially if it's meant to be
But yeah, I had the same feeling about the Cyberwoman.
Yeah.
In fact, it's got breasts and a kind of G-string in metal. It's all a bit strange.
Well, doing the job happened, I suppose.
Perhaps it's a case of, right, we'll put a woman in chamois leathers and that'll get the dads watching Doctor Who after the grandstand.
I did love the way they had to sneak in a bit of an explanation about why in Doctor Who they take people's brains out and put them into cyber bodies. Why here? Because they wanted a half-naked woman. The site had obviously had to change the way they were doing it, and so right at the end of the big Torchwwd battle, they were pressed for time, and they had to just upgrade entire bodies rather than take the brains out. It's a bit of a duff explanation, as far as I'm concerned.
Probably done for cheap titillation more than anything.
Yeah.
Works for me!
Oh, it was a great costume too. I mean,
It was a pretty good costume.
yes, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure somebody somewhere will try and make it. It won't be me, but I mean, you know, but
It was quite intrigued by the way that the cyber machinery had gone wrong when it tried to upgrade the Japanese surgeon, because it was like it had just taken a bit of an eye socket and a bit of a helmet thing and just stuffed them into it and expected it to work.
It doesn't say long term technology, it doesn't say, we don't have enough bits to finish this, do you really want to proceed?
Gento's not very good at programming, I think.
And of course next week, tomorrow night, it's going to be as if nothing ever happened. Deanto will be perfectly friendly, everybody will love him again.
Oh, it's the end of episode 7.
Absolutely.
They perfected that one in Star Trek.
I understand they're heading for something big in the last 2 episodes of the season, by the way. So it's going to be pretty impressive, and I don't know what it is, but it's going to be impressive.
Cyborg comes back, but John Robert.
How did they manage to get her brain in the other body? Get it to fit?
Well, I think because at some point they're disconnected. As soon as you've disconnected your own brain, who's putting it somewhere? Who's connecting it?
Well, it'll be the cyber machinery, which has obviously proved so well before. It's a sort of brain in the stomach.
Anyone who's ever had sex knows that once a man's brain is disconnected, the rest of him still works.
I guess this was a cyber woman.
You can do 2 things at once.
Of course, if this was an American series, we would have cyber kids running around.
That's what cyber Max was.
I think on that note, unless anybody's got any other burning questions about Torchwwd, anything anybody wants to know?
There seems to be sort of obviously a gap between the Victorian stage and this stage. Do you think there'd be sort of like novels or even series or something like that connecting the two?
I put in 3 proposals to BBC Books for a Torchwwd novel. One of the ones I had was going to be alternating chapters of the Torchwwd team now and the Torchwwd team from 100 years ago. And then there's something that the Torchwwd team found 100 years ago, which is in the archives and is now emerging again. Sadly, the BBC Books team never passed that proposal on to the production team, so I don't know what their reaction would have been. But I would really like to be able to go back and investigate some of the story about how Torchwwd got from where they were to where they are now. Why we never heard of them during the whole evening years. You get the impression that Torchwwd was one bloke working out of an office somewhere, right? Because the alternative is the whole conspiracy theory thing that you could rewrite any Doctor Who story from John Pertwee era with Torchwwd operating in the background, hoovering up all the stuff and not telling anyone.
My theory is that for most of its existence, Torchwwd was based in a house in rural Scotland, and only in the last 20 years or so that they've had Canary Wharf, Cardiff, wherever.
Yeah.
So when the Pertwee stories were happening, they were still out in the movies.
Yeah, I think that's my preferred theory, that the unit, for most of the time, were doing the operations, and whatever they get hold of, Torchwwd would take off of their hands and archive somewhere, and Torchwwd never had an operational arm.
Well, Torchwwd seems to be more like a ministry rather than an actual physical military or force or some sort of. That's what I found fascinating, particularly about the Doctor Who system, the fact that Queen Victoria could think of such a thing, which she probably did, and recognised the threat and wanted to preserve. And that's carried on. I mean, obviously the way you do it probably has changed, but the motivation's still the same. I mean, who are we protecting? You know, and is it shifting from just purely a force of protection to a force of investigation? But it's more like it's a ministry somewhere. I can imagine it being down in a basement somewhere, you know, with a bit of table and an old coffee pot machine. Some of the things that you would never want to go in there because you'd never want to look too deep into the files.
Yes. I think Unit's actually going to mention later on in the series, so presumably they are still around.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think the Torchwwd London team just got out of control. They got the wrong person in charge. They suddenly got this whole shitload of technology from somewhere, and they just went off. What's happening?
Too much too soon.
Because Torchwwd was set up by royalty. Maybe it's a bit capable by moving posts.
Yeah. I didn't want to have this.
The duchy with the news goes with
I didn't want to do this in the books where the Torchwwd team takes stuff from the archives every now and then and just market it. Just market like a use of a microwave oven placed on alien technology or something, just so they can keep the payments and keep the royalties coming. Just too close to the bone, I wasn't able to do that.
That's why the senator in America who sent around $1 million Christmas tree was told to shut up and go away. He was highlighting the overspending in the military budget. He bought a little Christmas tree and just decorated it with items which add up in the military budget to £1 million total, $1 million in total. You know, nuts were about $500. A picture of the coffee machine out of a bomber which cost £250,000 coffee machine. He was told, shut up, that's where our slush fund comes from. That's where our slush fund comes from. No, they're not $500. We don't buy Britain half.
The reference I really like in Torchwwd at the moment is one of the first episodes where Captain Jack's talking about all the other Torchwwd teams. And he said there's a strange man in Glasgow that we don't talk about. I need to write that book.
It's the Torchwwd that's been the old t-shirts.
Which was the one that they just had into the form for some time?
Torchwwd 4.
Welcome to